Welcome to the Businesses Start Here podcast, hosted by David Vigliotti and Vigliotti and Associates. We're here to talk with business owners and business experts to inspire and encourage entrepreneurs.
Welcome to the Businesses Start Here podcast. We're back with another episode. We've got another client of ours who we just recently met, probably 2 or 3 months ago, but she's got a lot of big things going on. We have Samantha from Pip and Lola's. They started the year with one location and now have a second, and by the end of the year they're going to have a third location. So Samantha, I can't believe you have time to be with us today, but I'm glad you did. And
you make time.
Exactly.
Time doesn't just magically appear. You have to make it happen.
So welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely.
fun.
So Pip and Lola's, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Pip and Lola's is?
Okay, so Pip and Lola's Everything Homemade is my soap company. So we started 10 years ago. And actually today is the 9th anniversary of us opening our first ever location.
Oh wow!
Isn't that funny? Like
That's
July 1st is like a thing. So we opened the first incarnation, and we've joked about having the various incarnations, but the first incarnation of Pip and Lola's opened in Freight House Square in Tacoma, Washington, 9 years ago today. And that was sort of like a conglomeration of a whole bunch of handmade things makers. At one point we had 80 different makers.
Wow.
That's a lot of artistic temperaments. That's a lot of artistic temperaments. Yeah. And so people used to like walk past us, walk past the aisle and go, oh, it's that Etsy store. Right. We refer to us as that Etsy store. So we did that. So we were that first location for 2 years.
Okay.
And then we kept like adding the spaces next to us until we just ran out of room. And so we went to a bigger location after year 2.
Okay.
And then I said, that's it, I'm never doing this again.
Right.
I think Bruce came in after his day job one day, and I was like, either they go or I do. Right. It was 80 temperaments were too many. And I think
like 2 or 3 are too many, so I'm impressed.
Yeah, I have a great deal of respect for these people who run all these like handmade markets, like I Made It Market and Handmade Arcade, and I know both of those women personally, but like the amount of patience that you have to babysit that many artistic temperaments, like I don't have that anymore. I don't know if I ever did.
You faked it.
When people are messaging you at 2:00 in the morning, mad because you won't do their taxes for them because they don't understand it. Like I'm done. Like what makes you think I understand this? Like I'm done. So that was incarnation 1 and 2. Swore I'd never do that again. Never ever do that again. There are Facebook posts where I was like, I'll never do this again. Then we moved back to Pittsburgh 6 years ago. And I moved back. Bruce came, and again, nope, not doing it. And so the first year we were here, we didn't. And then there was this cute little, like 430 square foot location, sort of across the street from our house.
Okay.
And we were still doing the Etsy and online stuff a little, not really a whole lot. And I was like, we'll get it out of the house. I have workaholic tendencies. It's important to get it out of the house. Right. And that became Incarnation 3.0, which was just the soap. It was just like the soap and whatever we made. Like we didn't have anybody else. That was our sweet spot. Like I clearly can't put up with other people's personalities. I have too big of a personality. I can't deal with anyone else's. And then we just outgrew that, and then moved into Incarnation number 4 3 years ago. This October will be 3 years. And I said, I'm never moving out of here. And I intend to be buried somewhere near that building. I've already warned our landlord. I'm like, so the building next door, that's yours too, right? So like, if this gets stupid, like we can just sort of like move in over there, which it's not unheard of. Yeah. And so we opened location number 2 of Incarnation number 4 in April, and we're opening location number 3 of Incarnation number 4 October, November-ish. It's actually being built out. Like I went there the other day, and so like the framing of the walls is there. Yeah. It's like it felt really real. Right. At that moment, I'm staring at it. Like it was Monday, which is like my only day off, and we're standing on the thing, and I'm staring at it, going, "Oh my god, yep, that's the thing that's happening." And just like I think because we've been talking to them for like a year. Yeah. It's been a year. I think August, September is when we first started because they approached us. Right. And we were first talking with them, but because the space we wanted was so small, and everyone else is getting like 2,000 and 3,000 square feet, and we wanted less than 600, and like 600 max. Like we didn't need anything bigger. I'm not making it there.
Right.
Because ours was so small, they had to find someone willing to go in around us.
Okay.
So, and then like they're getting bad press, and then all this stuff's happening.
Right.
We're going back and forth, and but we've had a letter of intent with them since October.
Wow.
So like it's been a long time, but it's been like this like thing maybe might be happening, and so but I was nervous about it because if you know anything about the Strip District, especially Smallman, like it's gonna be nuts.
Right.
It's gonna be nuts. Like once that's going, it's gonna be crazy. Like you go on a Monday during a pandemic, and it's packed.
Yeah.
So
it's probably gonna be your highest volume store.
Oh,
Quick.
by far,
Yeah.
by far. Like and we're prepared for that. That's actually the reason when Robinson approached us, and we've been approached by other places that we've turned down. Like we get approached. I do a lot of marketing, and we get a decent amount of media. But when Robinson specifically approached us, and I sort of like got the feel for who they were, I was like, I've never run 2 stores before. I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
And I knew with Robinson going in sort of like in a slow time, because summers in the mall is slow.
Right.
Like, that's a slow time. So I'm like, that's kind of perfect because it lets me work out all those kinks
Yeah.
before all hell breaks loose. So like, it seemed like almost like a dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
I know I use it in theater terms, but it was kind of like that. So I could go in sort of like at a low traffic sort of time and just figure out like, how do I track inventory? How do I figure out scheduling of employees? How do I hire somebody that's not a friend of mine already? So figuring all that stuff out, and like literally the day after we got our keys for Robinson, Strip's like, okay. I was like, okay. So it just kind of worked out beautifully that way. So I had no intention of going into this year to open 2 locations, but it kind of happened, and I feel like I'm really glad I did it that way. Even though like right now it's like insanely stressful,
right.
and it is. But I think because I did that, that's gonna make Strip way less stressful than it would have been had I not been Robinson.
You're prepared
first.
now. It's not your first rodeo anymore.
Right. Like I feel like okay, I mean it was like a dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
Doing all the things, slightly lower stakes.
Yeah. And everything has their nuances. There's going to be something that comes up, obviously, but
right.
As many things as you can get standardized now
Mm-hmm.
that you can transfer over there, it's going to be easier to handle
Right.
some of those weird
Well,
things
because
that come up.
like this whole time we've not been doing barcodes.
Right.
Because we just like type in what it is. Like we have a little thingy, we type it in and then look it up. And it wasn't until we started hiring folks that haven't been dealing with them for years. I'm like, that's not going to work because
Right.
they're getting them goofed, and so like wrong things are being charged. So now I know. So now we started barcoding everything. Not because of just because for simplification purposes, so like people aren't going, okay, yeah, it's soothing sense, but which of the 7 soothing things, which one is it? Because we have like a whole line of things with that name. So, but now I know that, and it's much better to know it now during a slow time at the mall versus then. And I figure like between the two, like winter at the mall is going to be way more, and may not be as much at the Strip, and they'll just sort of do this all year. Is my thinking. And then Homestead's going to be over here going, I'm just here to make stuff. Because we don't get a whole lot of folks like walking the door at Homestead, which is totally fine. That's where I do all the making and stuff.
Okay.
We may occasionally, but it's not a foot traffic place. Which is totally fine because I'm usually too busy running around anyway.
So it's interesting because you're starting to have to do some of the things bigger companies do. That you are a small company, it's a family company.
Right.
But now you need to put some of these policies and procedures and
Just this morning, Stephanie, who's been working for us for 4 years, sent me over. We're putting together an employee handbook, and so she's actually putting it together for me. She used to work at Barnes and Noble, and we stole her, and she worked for us for part time, and we got her full time in April. And she's like, I still have my copy of that. Do you want me to sort of like adapt it? Yes, please. I never worked retail before I did this. Like I sold real estate and I was an actor, or I waited tables. I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm like, employee handbook, that's a great idea. So let's do that. So just this morning she did that. So like figuring out like how to do that. We're gonna start doing sort of like instructional videos on like how we talk to folks.
Yeah.
We one of our new employees came to us actually by way of banking, and she was used to sort of that corporate, hi, welcome to Pip and Lola's. I'm like, ooh, honey, that's not what we do. And so, because we're really informal.
Right.
So I had to do an entire thing of, okay, here's our culture.
Yeah.
We don't upsell. We talk, like we figure out what they need,
Right.
and show them what we have that they need, but we don't push an item on them just to get that sale. Like,
Right.
I would much rather someone walk out with a handful of samples to try it because these might help them than to sell something to somebody that don't want it.
Yeah. So it's funny because I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about.
I'm pretty sure you do.
So what are some of the things you're doing to keep that small, intimate atmosphere as you continue to grow, but have to do some of the bigger company type things?
We gave them all nicknames. I think it helps. Sorry, I'm chewing. It's a dumb thing, but we gave them all nicknames. So I'm the soap goddess. Bruce is the master of sundries. Leah is the soap nymph. Stephanie's the soap princess. Jeanette's the soap diva. So everyone's got like a weird, silly nickname, and I made them all shirts with their stupid little nicknames on it. I feel like just sort of like we don't take ourselves seriously, but we take the work seriously. I think that helps with that.
Yeah.
As it starts to get bigger, I'm not sure. Like I don't know, but I think if we remind folks that the idea is, yes, of course we're in sales, and of course we have numbers we have to hit, and yes,
Right.
yes. But at the end of the day, we're problem solvers.
Right.
You know, and I think remembering that for them will help. Like I'm always big on, don't talk at them, talk to them.
Yeah.
Like listen, like you're having a conversation with someone. It's not just,
Right.
here, let me tell you all the things about the soap. No one cares. I mean, some people don't care, and it's hard. I think it's harder. I think it's harder to sort of just watch them and see like what they need.
Right.
You know, as opposed to, I'm going to
Yeah.
sell you these things now. Like just to sort of figure out, like, okay, I see you're hovering there. Like, do you have a question about that specific thing? Or just like finding an opportunity to go, oh, did you know we have this buy four, get the fifth?
Right.
Which I don't ever mention, even though there's a sign. Like, I don't ever mention it until they have three in their hands. Like, I never mention it until they have three.
Yeah.
Because it's a huge leap from 1 to 4.
Right.
But if you already have 3, it's like, if you buy another one, you actually get 2 more.
Yeah.
It's an upsell, but it isn't.
Right.
It's like, it's actually a better deal for you if you get that 4th one.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing a lot of is the reason you're successful is because you put your culture and your customers at the priority of everything.
All of it.
And knowing that treating those things with the highest priority, if revenue comes, great.
Yeah.
That you're not focused on revenue at all.
I should be. I know.
But that's not a bad thing,
I know.
but that's why you have your accountant, you have tax people, you have people there
Right.
to do that for you, and then if you need a kick, you get that kick.
I can take kicks. I don't mind kicks. We just, like, one of the people we just hired is, so one of the things we want to do is we want to become a B corporation, which I think we may have talked about.
Yeah.
And so we hired on Mary, whose job it is to figure out what we have to do to be B Corp and to make sure I do that.
Right.
And so she was kind of giving me a hard time yesterday. She's like, you have to put yourself on payroll and keep yourself there. I'm like, hey, if we have it, I pay me. But, like sometimes it's a matter of, like I have to make sure Leah gets hours, or I have to, like other things take priority in that moment. But the goal is to pay me. I said, besides, I just hired you. Like, I have to pay you now. Like, get off my back. But that's what her thing is that to make sure that those things I don't necessarily think about, I will start thinking about. Because I don't want people to think that this is a hobby for me, because God knows we're broke. And acting doesn't pay consistently enough. I wish it did. Although there's more stuff coming into town, so you never know. But yeah, I think my thing is that we are an affordable luxury, right? A lot of things that are like ours cost like twice what ours do. And not because we couldn't get twice, because I think we could.
Right.
And even with our numbers, like our stuff is priced well as far as like wholesale. Like I figured all that stuff out. But we're in Homestead. I don't have $15 for a bar of soap.
Right.
And what's the point of me being in an area where nobody can afford
Right.
my product? You know, like I think
Yeah.
there was a restaurant that opened in Homestead. I won't name names, but like they opened because I think people see the value in Homestead and they see that where it's going,
Yeah.
but it's not there yet. So you can't come in instantly with $30 entrees and then shut down 9 months later because you're mad that people aren't
Right.
like. You got to give them a minute.
Yeah.
And so like we've always had sort of affordable options because of where we are. I want them to come in. I want them to be able to leave with something in their hands. So yeah, you know.
You remind me a lot of Herb Kelleher. I'm not sure if you know who that is.
I don't.
He is the CEO or he was the CEO of Southwest.
Oh,
So
they have a similar philosophy. Yeah, I can see that.
yeah.
I can
So
see that.
basically, the goal is like make it as much fun as possible, and you get your work done.
Yeah.
Right. Like you're held very accountable for what you're doing, but like we're gonna have fun with it.
We're gonna have fun while
Like
we're
he
doing it.
literally boxed the CEO of another company for instead of going to court with him.
That's funny.
Their tagline, they had a boxing match with the CEO.
That's hilarious.
So like, I could see you doing that.
One of the things we do, I was talking to a filmmaker this morning, so we did it, because I have a theater background, I'm always trying to figure out ways to sort of combine the two things, and we had a season of a web series that we did about the store, which Jeanette was in,
Cool.
and called the Pittsburgh Sopranos. And like we had this whole like mafioso, like this mob soap maker who like was out to get me, and I did not know that was even a thing. Like I'm just like oblivious. I didn't go through my day, and the mafia's like, I'm gonna get them. So so we did a season of it, and everybody loved it. It was weird. Like it's still like we did it 4 years ago. People are still like, are you bringing back Sopranos? So now I'm gonna bring back Sopranos,
Awesome.
and people are super excited. So like I try to incorporate those things because it's hard. Like we're in retail, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, and like we have people come in, and I don't need the details of where on your body it helps, but I'm glad it does. But you don't need to be quite so specific.
Right.
We have one. Yeah, it's really specific. So we have people like that, but then we have people who come in who are crying because it helped them so much.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so there are pluses and minuses to all of it, but like it's hard, especially certain times of the year. It gets really hard, and so the last thing in the world I want is for people that I'm not paying enough to hate coming in.
Right.
You know, because it's bad enough that I'm not getting paid enough. Like I would pay them all $50 an hour if I could afford it.
Right.
But I want it to at least be a good time. So we always have coffee. We always have food. There's usually dance music. You know what I mean? Like it's a good time. And if you even look at the name of our soaps, we clearly don't take ourselves too seriously. Our slogan is "Think of us while you're wet and naked." We do not take ourselves too seriously. But the product's important.
Right.
It's really it's surprising. Like soap, it's soap, right? Like Death of a Salesman, it's soap.
Right.
But for some people, it's like, that's a quality of life.
Yeah.
It's a quality of life thing.
Yeah, there's allergies, there's all kinds of things that go into that.
Well, and I think one of the things I wish we could get to, and I'm working really hard towards it, is getting some of our stuff clinically tested. Because I get note after note after note after note from people that say a couple of the products that we have like completely changed the quality of their life. And I can't say that because FDA, although it doesn't stop people.
Right. You're not big enough to say it and get away with it.
You can be tiny and say stuff like that and not get away with it. There was a soap where
big companies get away with it. Little ones don't right now.
No, well, but sometimes the bigger companies have been tested.
Yeah.
So once you've had a clinical test done, you can claim that stuff, but you can't if you haven't had a clinical test done. So, but it's like $50,000 to test. I think you can get 2 products tested for around $50,000. Which I don't know that.
Right.
I mean, I really there's 2 I would kill to get them tested. Someday look at that's going to be part of it. It's part of our evolution is to get those 2 tested. But like people come to me all the time and say this one, like cystic acne things, like huge differences that these things have made, and I made them.
Right.
Which is so weird because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, like I accidentally happened upon this thing.
Right.
I mean, well, like my husband is he's our R&D department. He'll like look for something and he'll go, oh, we need to put this and this and this in because this is like, okay, and then I'll go and I'll put together the recipe and I'll make it happen. But still, it's not like I'm not a chemist, you know. So trial and error did a lot, but it's remarkable. It's so cool when they come and say that it made a difference for them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's more motivating for me than money is.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like that's.
Yeah, I've talked to a few people I've talked to and said, if money is your reason for getting into business, you shouldn't do it.
I know.
Because there's tons of money to be had,
Yeah.
but if that's your motivator, you're going to be doing things the wrong way for the wrong reason. If you're doing things for the right reason, the right way, that's when you're going to see the money just follow.
Yeah.
And it might not be there yet, but it's coming.
Yeah.
Right, and especially for you, like you have 3 stores, you've sunk so much money into the business at this point. Like if you just
we don't want to talk about
if you just had 1 or 2 stores, you'd have so much more money in the bank right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to help more people, you want to grow it, you want to employ
If
more
I didn't
people.
give away thousands of bars.
That's what I was just going to say. I think another reason for you want to grow is so you can give more away.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? Your program? Can you tell a little bit
Oh,
about that?
for every 2 items that we sell, we donate a bar of soap, like a full-size bar of soap, to a domestic violence shelter or charity, like anyone who works sort of in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Last year we started in August and we gave away 3,000 last year. We're
That's awesome.
just under 5,000 for this year. And I just actually hired somebody super duper part-time, and that's her job, is to find where they're going to go. Because I currently have a stack of 1,200 bars that need a home. And I was just like, I'm too busy to make calls. Can you do this? And it was interesting because, everyone's complaining about nobody wants to work, and I put this ad out for a job that literally pays $100 a month. I'm like, this is like 5-10 hours a month max. But I just don't have time. I had 17 applicants.
Yeah. I don't think it's people don't want to work. I think
I
there
don't
is
think
some to that. So there are some, obviously there's always going to be people
Always.
that take advantage of whatever's out there. But I think what we're seeing now is people realize they don't want to work in what they were working in.
Mm-hmm.
So they're figuring out what will satisfy me. So
Mm-hmm.
something like that, they have a tremendous interest in helping people. Right?
Well, you can make a huge impact on somebody's life.
Right.
And
So-
it's so stupid.
Right.
The reason we launched this program was we've always done the suspended soaps. So we've always had that where like someone can buy a bar of soap and then we would match it and then we would donate it to like food banks or whatever. But I'm friends with a lady, one of the people who runs the Southwest PA Domestic Violence organization down here in Washington, and we were giving them to them a lot. Like when I couldn't find anyone else to take them, I would give them to them. Because I'm busy trying to like chase down charities is hard.
Yeah.
And so we had 2 separate people that had gotten the soaps from them who contacted me over the course of last year. And just to let me know like how in that day, like on that day when they came to the shelter for the first time, and it's just like the worst, when you get out, like that's a hard enough situation. Leaving those situations is actually harder than staying.
Yeah.
Because that you're more likely to get killed when you leave, statistically.
Yeah.
And but like on this day, like they had this thing, and it was like made them feel normal for like a minute during this like utter chaos.
And you said it's a luxury product, so
It
how
is
often do you get something so special in that type of situation?
Right, because normally you get that horrible pink powdered stuff. And I don't know if you've ever used the pink powdered stuff that they have at shelters. I have spent some time in shelters. It's awful, and it just like rips you up. It cleans you, like you're clean.
Right.
You hate your world for a minute, but you're clean.
Maybe too much.
Right, and not all domestic violence victims are women. More are.
Right.
And women also, like statistically, it's kind of a stereotype, but like, how do we tend to decompress at the end of a horrible day? We wash it all off. Today was garbage, wash it all off.
Yeah.
And so there's something sort of renewing of just washing off the filth of a terrible day.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that with something that's not also going to rip your skin to shreds,
Right.
you know, I think it's huge.
Yeah.
And I think also knowing that it was handmade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of soapers who are like, I infuse my stuff with magic, or I only do this on the full moon, and I giggle about them. But you know, I do joke that my stuff is love infused because I have touched almost every one of those bars. You know, so I don't do anything without meaning it, and so you know, I like as I'm making every batch, like I realize like someone's going to be on the other end of that,
Right.
and you know, if I was on the other end of that, like would I be happy with this? And so I try to make sure that, you know, good enough is never good enough. So so I'm glad that it works for people. But like during the whole lockdown thing, that's all I could think about with those folks stuck.
Yeah.
You know, and it's bad enough to be stuck normally.
Right.
But I mean, there's no. I mean, the shelters were closed. All the shelters were closed.
Yeah.
There was nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And you know, there was a huge ramp up in reports after.
Right.
There was no place for people to go for like 2 or 3 months. I don't even want to think about how many people were killed during that.
Right.
You know, it's one of those byproducts of COVID that happened, I think. You know, I can't write big checks. I can do that.
Right. Yeah, you're doing what you can.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, I get like weird and weepy about it. It's a thing.
It's a heavy subject.
It is, and so somebody said something to me like, "How we're so weird," and then we've got the weird sort of like kind of sexy slogan, and then we do this thing for domestic violence. It's like, I know it kind of like it doesn't really match up. It's like having like a cartoon, you know, but it's like it's like beaches, you know, animated or something. I don't know, it makes no sense. It's okay.
All right. So kind of getting back to the business side. So you swore off starting a business.
Yep.
When you started that first business, is this something you always wanted to do?
No.
No? You didn't want to start a business?
No.
Okay.
I never even.
I love talking to people that didn't want to start a business.
No,
It's
it
so much
was an
fun.
accident.
Yep.
Yeah. No. So when the first time I made soap, so I used to be a reporter. One of the many jobs I've had. I was a columnist for a newspaper, and I belonged to one of those online writers forums when that was a thing. I don't know if there's still things. And one of the people in our group had written an ebook on how to make soap in your kitchen. So I bought her book to be supportive. Rah rah, go Amy. And
The
so
best and worst thing you ever did?
Well, I've always been sort of, when you're poor, you make stuff, right? You can't buy stuff, you make stuff. We've always had like handmade holidays. Like we've always done that. Like we've always like given each other like cards or, you know, written poems or letters or whatever as gifts because we couldn't afford anything.
Right.
So that's always been a big thing with me is figuring out something I can make. And I can't sew to save my life. And prior to last year, I didn't know how to draw. So like I was limited as to what I could do. You can only act a couple, you know,
Right.
it's not really helpful.
Here's your monologue this year.
Here's your monologue. Let me present an interpretive dance. Yeah, so it's harder to do that. So when I found the soaps, I was like, oh, cool, I can. So there were gifties. So it was something I'd make for people. And then when I would do theater, I would like make a batch of soap as like a cast present. And then I did that for like 5 or 6 years, and people were like, "Oh, that one you made during Nonsense. Can you make that one again? You know, I'll buy them off of you or whatever." I'm like, "I don't know, I'll just make them for you or whatever." I was sort of strong-armed into it. And it was like, and I didn't like. It was never my intent.
Right.
But I really enjoy doing it. And I'm one of those people like when I decide I'm gonna do something, I learn everything there is to know. Like I started painting last June I started painting, and I have probably done over 200 paintings.
Wow.
I have taken like 150 tutorials. Like I've gotten decent at it. I've probably sold 50 or 60 paintings, which is crazy because there are people who have like art degrees who can't sell paintings, but for whatever reason, people buy mine. I just sold one 2 days ago. So that's kind of who I am. So I was like trying to learn everything I could about making soap, and I have scalp psoriasis, so that's how I ended up making shampoos because I have scalp psoriasis. Perrin has seborrheic dermatitis. That child is allergic to thing. He would get like these bleeding rashes on his tush. So we started like making stuff that he could use because you couldn't find anything, so I would make it for him. And so then when I got strong-armed into opening an Etsy store, I stopped. I didn't make anything for like 6 months. And I researched everything under the sun. I'm like, what's out there? Like what, like I wouldn't, there's 1,000 soapers out there, but I wouldn't want to do something that's exactly like what everyone else was doing. Because what's the point?
Yeah.
Like they're already doing it. Like I don't need to add to that. Tons and tons of pretty sparkly, heavily scented, swirlies, tons of those. A couple of no scented, you know, not really nothing in the middle. Yeah. And so scents are a huge trigger. Oh yeah, no, I brought those for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Scents are a huge trigger for folks. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, well, let me, you know. And when we first started, I refused. I was a brat. I refused to use fragrance oils. Refused, A, because they give me headaches, but also, like, I was just a brat about it. So that's a salt bar. Mm-hmm. That's true. Smell it. A friend of mine was like, I bet you can't put rum in a soap. I'm like, I bet you I can. So that's what that is.
The Dread Pilot.
That makes sense.
It's
that has tangerine, you know, for scurvy, and then salt because, you know, salt water, and then it has rum in it because all good pirates have rum. It's actually, we sell a lot of those.
That's cool.
It's actually, my husband's probably making those right now as we speak because we run out. Yeah, so we did things like this. The brown boxes are all natural lines. So we started with these. Okay. And I was a complete brat for like 8 years. I just flat out refused to use fragrance oils, just flat out. Just snob about it. People kept asking for them. And because again, there's not a whole lot of lightly scented options with the fragrance oils either.
Right.
So, I don't know, 3 years ago, I was like, fine. But if I'm doing them my way. And so they're all named after Shakespeare characters. Because I'm a dork. And it's been tricky because, A, there's thousands of Shakespeare characters, but also trying to find scents that match.
Right.
You know.
You picked a good person to use names because there's so many. So
there's so
they're
many.
running out.
It's right, and it's really funny when people don't get it. Why is this named this? Or they'll think, oh, there's one named Olivia. Do you have one named? I'm like, no, it's all Shakespeare characters. But what's really fun is when people come in and they know, and they get the joke. When they get the joke. Yeah. There's like 5 people a year maybe that get one of the jokes.
Right.
Like, well, like, okay, so Montague is Romeo and Juliet. So it's Neroli Cabernet, so it's wine and roses. A rose by any other name. Yeah, I know. I'm a dork. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
That's so cool. But that's a way you can use your creativity to have fun. And like you said, like if people don't get it, it doesn't hurt anything. But like when somebody does, like
they're
gonna be a customer for life.
During lockdown, we did a whole. I don't know if you saw any of them. We did a whole stop motion animation thing with the soaps. Like we had little pipe cleaner hands, and we like put little eyeballs on them. And you know, I'd never done stop motion animation before. I can do it now. So we would move like, you know, it's 900 pictures to do like a 30-second thing. Right. We just move them and move the little arms. And so we did like little like mini Shakespeare scenes, but with the soap as actors. That was really way too much fun. It was so time consuming. It took me. When we did the tightest one took a long time because we did this whole Brady Bunch thing with it. So like each one, like, and then I had like have them looking at each other and like looking across and pointing up and pointing down. So like I'm trying to like line it all up was a beast. But it was like a 3-day thing, and that was with my shoddy editing skills. So like somebody who's actually an editor probably could have done it faster, but. I get too busy to spend 3 days editing anything. Because if you're a small business, if you need something edited, that's expensive. Yeah. Learn how to use a program.
Exactly.
I edited a video yesterday because we had the malls doing Christmas in July, and so I did like a little 30-second Christmas in July video. That was like 6 hours of editing yesterday. Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting. You don't think you're like business savvy. Right? From what you said.
I don't know what I'm doing.
But you do. Like, just like finding a gap in the current market is what every business owner should be doing. And like people get their MBA to learn that you find a gap in the market. Like it's just stuff that comes naturally to you.
It's always frustrated me that I didn't have that option. Yeah. It's one of the reasons we have so many, because everyone's like, you have too many products and you narrow it down. Like there are not a lot of, I mean, like now there's more. I don't want to be like uppity enough to think that we drove that, but now that I can think of, there's at least like 10 others that sort of, they don't specialize in lightly scented, but they'll have lightly scented lines.
Okay.
But they didn't exist that I could find before, and so it's kind of funny. I was just mad that didn't exist, and so there are people who need that.
Yeah.
They want some. I'm not going to take that option away from them. Like, I'm not taking that away from them.
You're right.
I will keep that as big as I can for as long as I can, because they have a right to have options.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't even walk past a certain hand soap candle realtor that also tends to, or a retailer that also tends to be in malls. I can't even walk past them. It gives me a headache.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I live with these all day.
Yeah.
I can't, and we get nose blind. Like, I can't
Right.
smell my store anymore.
Yeah.
Which is really sad. It's really sad.
Well, it smells great in here right now.
Does it? See,
Yeah.
People will say, "Oh, I can tell what you made today because you smell like peppermint." I'm like, "Okay, I don't know."
When you walked in today, you probably smelled it right away.
That's so fun. Yeah, I probably lose it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't smell them at all anymore, which is kind of sad. It was nice when I would do shows out of town because I'd be gone for a couple weeks. I'd come back, I'm like, "Oh, I can smell the store." It's so nice. Now when I tell people I can't smell it, they get nervous and think that it's COVID.
Oh, jeez.
Well, because that's one of the
Right.
symptoms.
Yeah.
Now I'm just nose blind. I just can't. It's so when we add a new one, that's all I can smell for a bit.
Oh, okay.
We're about to do a very limited run of one of our suppliers started making natural fragrance oils, so they're all naturally derived, which I'm super excited about. So we're going to do a small line of just those. So
Cool.
those I can smell.
Yeah.
I can smell those.
Right.
Super. There's a vanilla black currant. I'm like, I can smell you. You're so nice. Smell good stuff used to be my thing.
Right.
Like, I was like the easiest person to buy for. I'm like, I don't know, give me yarn or smell good stuff. And I was set, and now I can't, like, the smell good stuff. I'm like, my husband makes a candle, like, I don't smell this either. It's just so sad.
So starting the business and growing it. So this is, you said, your third store on iteration 4.
Yeah.
So you've learned a lot of lessons along the way.
I'm pretty good at opening stores.
Yeah, you are good. And they're successful. You haven't had any that kind of imploded, it seems like.
Well, no, I mean, they haven't. We had one really, really slow year when we first moved here, because Bruce was in charge of the online and I had a day job, and he's awesome, but he's not proactive. So, like, if things come to him and things need to get done, but he's like, it's just not his personality type. He's from Oregon.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want from him? When a type A and a type B get married, that was what happened. So so that year we went down, but we've grown at least 20 to 25% every year.
That's awesome.
Which is cool, because this is really the first time we've taken on like a major debt. Because like we didn't do that. Like we've been shoestringing this the whole time. Like we would ramp up as we could afford to.
Right.
Yeah. So that year was but
well, a lot of people think you have to take on debt to start a business, and especially like a product business.
Yeah.
People think that. So if you don't
everybody I know that's had businesses tank. I've known several. Like they take out all this money, and then they're paying themselves from all this money, which seems crazy to me, honestly. I'm like, how are you paying yourself if like you're accumulating all this debt? Like, how are you paying yourself while you're accumulating? I get it, like you have to live, but at the same time, like you're just going to pay that back. Like you're not really paying yourself. You're just like adding it on to the end. Yeah. That seems like to me that didn't make sense.
So you knew inherently what a lot of people struggle with, I think. So when you bring on debt, there is a time and place for it.
Mm-hmm.
But before you even start the business, you have to know that personally what you need to take out of the business. Is it $0 a month? Is it $5,000 a month?
Yeah.
And then look at the business that you're in and see and try to project it'll be this long until the business sustains me personally, to make sure you have that much in the bank.
Right.
So I think that's an area, that's why you're successful. You seem financially conservative, I would say, right?
Funny. Well, I think it's because I've been broke my whole life.
Right.
So like.
That's why rich people go bankrupt all the time. People who grew up rich, I don't know the statistics, but anecdotally, those are the people that go bankrupt.
Yeah.
The people that started a business that came from nothing or meager beginnings are usually the ones that are successful because they understand how to be conservative and how to use money effectively instead of as a toy.
When we did the Indiegogo, so we raised $14,000 with the Indiegogo, because I am really good at figuring out a cheaper way to make that happen. Like, so because when we were first trying to figure out our budget for it, I'm like, okay, well, let's figure a worst case scenario, how much it's going to cost. Our light tank, right? So the light tanks that we found were like $2,000 for these things. I was like, okay, so I budgeted $2,000. I'm like, that's a lot. Okay. And then we started raising the money, and I went, wait a minute, we do hot process. I don't have to have my lye at 72 degrees or 95. I don't have to have it at it has to be room temperature. I don't need it to be heated. So I found like this double-lined plastic 20-gallon lye tank for $145. So I had budgeted $2,000.
Right.
Spent $145.
That reminds me of my wife.
Oh my gosh. So I felt so stupid, right? So I felt so stupid because, like, okay, so we do hot process, which is slightly different than a lot of soapers, which is the reason they look rustic, right? So we cook them, which makes scaling up hard because, like, there's then cooking machinery involved.
Right.
It's not just a matter of getting a bigger bowl, like it's cooking machinery involved. So I was because we were doing roasting pans, which everyone told me. First off, everybody who was a soaper, who was like a small soaper, like, you can't do hot process production. I'm like, why? Because it's too cost prohibitive. You can't do it. But everybody was like making hot process in like these tiny little crock pots. I'm like, well, if that's what you think it is, well, duh.
Right.
So we started with these, and then we found the 6-quart crocks, and then sort of worked it to that. And then I had these roasting pans, and I found stainless steel inserts for these roasting pans. All of a sudden, I could do 20-pound batches, hot process. Well, guess what? If it has 3 colors, that's a 60-pound batch, hot process. But then they stopped making the inserts for the roasting pans, so I was stuck. And I had found these, those soup kettles, like when you go to like Eaton Park or whatever, they always have like the soup warmers. I have 11 of those. If you need one, I have like a bunch because I've outgrown them. But I had 11 of those, and sometimes I would have all 14 of those pots going at once. Yeah. And I could crank out like 100-something pounds a day with just that. Yeah. But I was trying to figure out a way to scale up, and the only thing I was finding was what's called a steam kettle. And like a 10-gallon steam kettle is $5,000.
Wow.
Right. It's like a whole thing. It's like oil jacketed, so to make sure like everything flows right. And they're a thing. That's how like when you buy like mass produced like soup or whatever, they're usually done in these giant soup. I mean, you can get them like 500-gallon. It's huge things. And they're spendy. And so like I was trying to figure out how am I gonna? Because I knew I wasn't. Because I'm like, if I'm going to spend several grand, we're going to go to 40. And I don't have room for a 40. Right. And that's like $15,000, which I don't want. Plus, we don't need that right now. And I don't have drying space for that right now. So I was like, but there has to be something in the middle. And I was going crazy. And so I was Googling liners. So I'm like, well, I'll see if I can get more roasting pans and see if I can find more of these liners, which I stopped making. And I was talking to like people, but stainless steel is a whole different thing. Like, it's a whole different animal trying to find people who work with stainless steel because it's harder and there's like different things involved. And while researching that, I found steam tables. I used to work in restaurants. Why did that never occur to me before? So I got 4 tabletop steam tables. So now I can do 50-pound batches.
Wow.
Do you know how much each of those things cost me? $100. Liners were like 80. For the big 8-inch, 50-pound, it's 80.
Wow.
So it's like $200. Just not $15,000.
Right.
And I can do And I can do a 50-pound batch, which means for my 3 colors, I can do a 150-pound batch of the 3-color soap.
Yeah.
Without even breaking the sweat. And it takes less time because there's water around it as opposed to the roasting pans, which were dry heat. These are wet heat.
Yeah.
I felt so stupid. So I had budgeted all this money. Well, I had budgeted all this money to try to get like a bigger. I was looking at doing wax melters because I figured I could make it work with a wax melter, but those were still like $2,000. So I budgeted for that, and then I found these.
So kind of to summarize, here I think you have 3 business superpowers.
But I don't know what I'm doing, so therefore I don't know the right way to do it, so I just make it up.
But so the first is humility.
Okay.
You know that you don't know what you're doing, so you brought people in around you who do.
Right.
You have bookkeepers, you have your husband that does things.
Mm-hmm. I hired someone with 15 years of retail experience
Right, yeah.
to teach me all the things I don't know what they're doing.
Exactly. So you put the right people around you because you know you are very self-aware. You know your shortcomings, you know your strengths.
Right.
And
I'm good at marketing.
And you play to those, and
Right.
you hire people that play well to your weaknesses. You go all in, right?
Right.
You know, like I have no idea what you were just talking about.
I dork out about process. I totally dork out about process. It's funny.
But you know it so well that you knew enough to listen to people who were doing it, but you went and learned on your own, but also knew enough that you could figure out ways to be to ingenuity,
Right.
to use your ingenuity around it, like your crafting skills, your upbringing. You're bringing kind of all of your experiences to make you like this super entrepreneur, I would say. Seriously. I know you don't feel like that, but like...
I feel really stupid.
But where you feel stupid, how many people haven't thought of that are doing what you do?
Yeah.
Right?
Because you can't production hot process. That's what people keep saying.
Right. So, but you didn't let something that's people say is impossible stop you.
Right.
You knew there was a way.
There's always a way.
Right. And then...
That's what maps are for. There's more than one way. I had this conversation last night. There's more than one way to get from here to Cleveland.
Yeah.
You don't have to take the turnpike.
Right.
There's other ways.
Yeah. And then the third one I would say is your personality. So the marketing that you mentioned, you have fun.
Yeah.
Like you're just people want to be around you.
Yeah,
And
we're a good time.
the people you bring into your organization want to help you succeed. Like you said, you don't pay them what they should be paid. But because of who you are, because of the type of leader that you are, people work for you because they don't want to let you down. And they love you.
Does he make people cry? Is this a thing?
So I'd say like
our customers are that too. Like,
right.
I don't know if you've spent any time looking at our customer base. Like, I mean, they are remarkable. We have a remarkable customer base. And I mean, that's very sweet what you said. I try every day to deserve them. They've been, it's like, again, they always seem to know, like when I've had a bad day, and I'll get notes. Yeah, there's no way we could have, I mean, like everyone says that, and it's like, of course not, you're in sales, of course not. But there's a difference between people who buy stuff from you and people who are like all in.
They're fans.
Have your back, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're pretty cool. So people complain about retail all the time. I'm like, I don't know about you guys, but my people are awesome.
It's a mentality.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're not looking for the worst in people. You're looking for the best in people, and you're helping them.
As long as you don't tell me everything about it, I'm glad it works. I don't need to know. It's really graphic. I don't need to know.
So on that note, I want to say thank you for coming in. Again,
I hope this helps.
It did. It inspired me just hearing your story and the passion that you have.
Thank you.
So thank you. So that is another episode of the Businesses Start Here podcast. Thank you so much to Samantha for coming in. Be sure to check out Pip and Lola's. They have, what's the address in Munhall?
134 East 8th.
134 East
In
8th. So
Homestead.
that's right next to the waterfront, right?
Right. So like when you make that left off the bridge,
Mm-hmm.
we're on that first block.
Okay. So right in the water, basically right in the waterfront in Homestead. Be sure to look them up. the mall in Robinson, and then in this fall they're going to be in the Strip District.
In the terminal building.
Yeah, so they're excited. They're growing quickly, and we're happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Businesses Start Here podcast. We hope you were inspired and encouraged by today's podcast. We would love to hear your feedback. Please send us an email at podcast@vilioti.com. That's podcast@villiotti.com. And be sure to share, like, and comment all of our content.